years now, it has been, I don't know what to say, it has been a kind of position to take in this country that people will say, I'm not anti-Semitic, I have nothing against Jewish people per se, that's not what I feel, but I am deeply opposed, they will say, to Israeli foreign policy. That's why I'm marching in this way, that's why I feel the way I feel. But following the unprovoked terrorist attack by Hamas on innocent Israelis, babies, toddlers, old people, Holocaust survivors, young people, 260 people killed at a pop festival celebrating peace and music, it's not possible to say that anymore, is it? Because if you're protesting, if you're demonstrating anti-Israeli or anti-Jewish feeling by smashing up a kosher shop in Golders Green or daubing Free Palestine on a wall or whatever it is, or indeed has happened today, throwing paint on Jewish schools in Stamford Hill. What's that got to do with Israeli foreign policy? Absolutely nothing at all.
Let me say, Vanessa, in 2021, there was a similar flare-up going on in the region, and there was a convoy of cars that drove through
I remember it.
London shouting, F the Jews, rape their daughters, rape their mothers.
Yeah.
What did Hamas do last week? They raped the daughters and they raped the mothers.
Yeah.
And I just want to say that the same flag being flown from those cars that were shouting that through megaphones in an area that has a high population of Jewish people living in it was the same flag that we saw out in the streets in London. I just want to say this. We cannot divorce the anti-Semitism here in the UK from the anti-Semitism at the very core of Hamas, whose charter makes very clear, their founding charter, people can go and look it up on the internet. It's so clear in its anti-Semitism. It's so clear that it will not accept any negotiated solution to the problem. It's so clear that its intention is to kill all Jews. So when we hear people in London waving the Palestinian flag and threatening to rape Jewish women, and then we see people in Israel raping Jewish women, I think we need to join the dots and realise that in this country we need to take far more seriously anti-Semitism, because it's not just a problem for us Jews, it's a problem for the whole of society. If we sit by and look at people, frankly, people in the streets threatening to rape anybody with a megaphone, and there's nobody in jail for that today.
No.
The police dropped the charges, they didn't manage successfully to put anyone in prison for that. I think that's shocking. And I think that really what Jewish people are afraid of is, we talked about those people in that protest last weekend, if they're not really out for Palestinian people's welfare because they're not speaking out about the many things that stop the Palestinians having a state and peace and a good life, then we can assume what they maybe are out there for. And that's why Jewish people are worried, because these people live among us. We saw thousands of people on the street there. We read thousands, if not millions, of comments online which are vicious and brutal and threatening. And then we see those things happening in Israel. We've had Islamist terror attacks here in the UK, Manchester Arena, London Bridge, not far from here. I've reported from them as a journalist. We need to take these threats seriously. They're not just to Jews, but they are primarily and usually first to Jews. There's something which we cannot tolerate, and we need to start at the thin end of the wedge. We need to take it seriously.
France has banned pro-Palestinian marches at the moment, hasn't it?
I'm not for banning anyone's right to go on marches, anyone's right to show solidarity for any people in the world. Our own views on Palestinian issues and Israeli issues are not the point here. For me, what this is about is that we saw hundreds, over 1,000 Israelis brutally and savagely killed. I've seen pictures and videos this week that are so brutal they can't be shown on television or in the papers.
Yes.
We've looked at those in order to do our reporting. Charred babies. There was a debate going on over whether or not the babies really had their heads cut off. We demand to see pictures, as if every journalist who's ever reported an atrocity saw the actual corpse and the actual picture. Many of them rely on primary sources. I've seen plenty of interviews and spoken with people myself who have seen these things, who've worked in clearing up the scenes. The very fact that people are demanding that Israel open its body bags and show the bodies of charred babies just shows us the actual truth of the motivation behind these things. Accuracy is, of course, important, but we need to accept that there is a particular venom behind the the sort of animosity that's shown towards Israel and towards Jewish people. We just need to call it what it is. As well as calling Hamas terrorists, we need to be able to call out anti-Semitism when we see it.
Do British Jews need to be afraid?
I think there's plenty to be afraid of, I'm sorry to say. I think that generally our day-to-day lives in Britain as Jews are great. I mean, I have a good life in Britain. I feel very safe usually, but I don't know a single Jew at the moment who's going out readily wearing a Star of David on a necklace, or even many who've taken off their kippot, the ritual head covering that male Jews wear. Jews have been very afraid of that. We're used, as you know, to having huge security outside our synagogues, our schools, our nurseries, our community centres, not just now, not just when something's flaring up in the Middle East, all the time. I don't see that outside churches. I don't see that outside temples. I don't see that outside mosques. Why? Because it shouldn't have to be there. It shouldn't have to be there for us. Why do we have to have an organisation in our own community that the government has rightly given extra money to now to protect us? We should be protected. We shouldn't have this threat. We deserve equal right in this country to safety and security without people coming after us. But this, as I said, is a massive problem, not just for us. It's a problem for the whole country. It's a problem for our values. It's a battle of good versus evil. And I've been so heartened, by the way, by the support that I've had personally and many people I know from neighbours, friends, acquaintances, people in my local Tesco who see me often, my next door neighbours who I don't know that well. So many people have got in touch with me, people I was at university with decades ago, got in touch just to say, we're thinking of you, this is horrific. And many of them are saying, now we understand. Well, we've understood for a very long time, but I'm really pleased if other people are beginning to understand, and hopefully that can be the beginning of us collectively, as a society, as a country, showing our resolve against this kind of evil.
Hear, hear.